Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I will be explaining about underwater welding. So what is underwater welding? Underwater welding is one type of arc welding, but it is done at underwater and the electrodes are used is fully waterproof. This is underwater welding. So the welder have to be dive into the deep sea or deep ocean or water and have to be a good swimmer, and also the welder has to be a good welder. So underwater welding is a process of joining metals while submerged in water. So this is done underwater, it is submerged. So we can say that it is one type of submerged arc welding, but it is submerged underwater. That was the submerged arc welding. The arc was submerged under granular flux, but it is submerged under water. So it is commercially used, and the divers is specially trained. That is, the welder are specially trained for this welding, because the welder has to be a good diver and also a good welder. So it is mainly used for ship repair, offshore oil platforms, pipelines and underwater structures. That's why it is done underwater, because the structures works on water. So if there is an emergency and the fault is underwater, then the welding must be done. That the process is underwater welding. So the welder diver works directly in the water using special waterproof electrodes. The electrodes are special waterproof. The electric arc is generated between the electrode and the workpiece, just like in shielded metal arc welding. That is the one type of shielded metal arc welding or electric arc welding. So the arc melts the base metal and the electrode, forming the weld joint. This is underwater welding. We can see one person is doing welding joint under water or under sea. We can see clearly in this figure. So underwater welding is two types: wet underwater welding and dry underwater welding. So what is dry underwater welding? Dry underwater welding is done underwater, but one vacuum chamber is created and the welding is done inside the vacuum chamber. So it is not at all underwater welding. The chamber is underwater and the welding is done at the vacuum. That's no need of waterproof electrodes. That is the normal electric arc welding. And another type is wet underwater welding. That is done directly under the water and the electrode is used, specially waterproof electrodes. So in this figure we can see that this is workpiece, this is specially waterproof electrode, and this is electrode gun or electrode holder. And when welding is done, these are the bubbles created. When welding is done at this place, heat is generated, and by the heat the water vaporizes or different kinds of gas occurs here. So that H2O and the vapors and the gases produces these type of bubbles. So this is underwater welding looks like. So we have to face some challenges when we are doing underwater welding. First, the hydrogen embrittlement. So hydrogen from the water causes metal brittleness and cracking. When the underwater welding is done underwater, the water molecules break down and creates hydrogen, and that hydrogen mixes with the weld bead and it causes brittleness and also causes cracking on the welding zone. Next, the rapid cooling. So when we are doing the wet underwater welding under the water, the workpieces are exposed to cool water or cold water. That's why it leads rapid cooling and leads to hard and brittle weights, that when we are doing any kind of heat treatment process, that is one type of heat treatment process. So when we are doing underwater welding, the weld zone or the welding metals are heated and simultaneously also the metals are cooled. That's why it becomes hard. Next, the arc stability. The water disturbs the arc, special electrodes are required. So when we are doing the welding and spark creates, that sparks nothing but the flame of the fire. So the fire is disrupted by the water. That's why the special kinds of electrodes are required. Next, the visibility issues. So when we are doing welding, murky water reduces precision and also the visibility. So the welder is unable to clearly see the welding zone. Next, the safety hazards. So the welding is done underwater. So here is a risk of electric shock, decompression sickness, also the drowning effects. So these are the challenges we have to overcome to do the underwater welding. Next, the equipment used. So here specially waterproof electrodes are used. Also the welder have to use diving suit, helmet with communication gear. The communication gear is required because of the welder is underwater and the welder is diving underwater. So if the welder needed something or the welding is done, the welder can't spoke directly from the water. So the communication gear is required. Next, the power supply and the control unit. It is must to do welding. Also the umbilical cable or the tube type cable. The tube type cable contains the pipe for air, the power cable and also the signal cables. Next, the welding chamber. It is only for dry welding. If the underwater welding is dry welding, then the welding chamber is required. But if the welding is done wet underwater welding, then the welding chamber doesn't required. So there are few advantages. The setup is simple. If the underwater welding is wet underwater welding, then the setup is simple and cost is low. It is quick for temporary or the emergency repairs, and here no need for special chambers or equipment. This is for wet underwater welding. We are talking about wet underwater welding, not for the dry underwater welding. Also the advantages are, if the weld quality is very poor and due to rapid cooling and hydrogen embrittlement, the weld quality becomes very poor. Here risk of electric shock, also the visibility is limited and also the control is out of control. So next is porosity. Air creates porosity and also cracking are common, but we use this in different places. The applications are in ship hull and propeller repairs, offshore oil platform maintenance, harbor and dam structure restoration, submarine pipeline joining and repair, underwater construction and salvage work. So this is wet underwater welding. Hope this video was useful for you. Thank you for watching this video. For more updates, subscribe this channel and hit the bell icon.